Are psychic mediums real? To me, I think so. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and today we're counting down our list of the top 10 haunting messages from beyond the grave. Coming in at number 10 is Grandma's message. Now this message is truly disturbing and just plain shocking. This online user said, "When my grandma died, my mother and my aunts visited the psychic because they believed that dark forces ended the life of my grandmother. She slipped in the shower and died a week later. My mother and aunt called my grandmother if she was okay in the afterlife, and she said that she was hungry and craving mangoes and stuff, and she warned them that she will take one of my pregnant aunts. Both my aunts were pregnant. They stared at each other and hoped that they wouldn't die. Fast forward 2 years later, my aunt died from a stroke after celebrating her birthday." Ugh, creepy. Number 9, the boyfriend. This Reddit user said, "So some of you know my story, but I ran of home just to have the love of my life die a month later, and I had an intuition about it the night before. Anyway, I was talking to a psychic the other day. She was practicing her intuition with me and gave me guidance on my situation and to figure out what next move I should take. She does mediumship too, but she wasn't comfortable with doing it yet as she wasn't fully comfortable contacting deceased loved ones. However, the conversation ended up steering towards that, and my late boyfriend ended up reaching me through her. I told my boyfriend to show her a Liberty Bell, so I knew for sure that she was actually giving insight on my situation and not just cold calling. There was no way she could have searched up anything associated to him or myself, as I was on an alternate account, did not give her any information, and we both have private social medias. She ended up bringing up the Liberty Bell, and she got a few messages from him. He said to tell me that it's okay, that he loves me and he is so sorry, and that he can fly and he's happy. It was incredibly beautiful. She got excited as I was. Any form of doubt I had there being an afterlife is gone. I know he is with me. I do have tons of comfort though, and I'll know I'll get through it with him in my passenger seat." Number 8. Guardian Angel. This user posted a story saying, "I went to a well-renowned psychic. All I told her was my name and date of birth. She began to draw letters, circles, and lines. From that, she gave me the first initial of my brother. He goes by his middle name and doesn't list his first name anywhere. She told me about my future husband. I hadn't met him yet. She even told me what he looked like. She said the man I was currently seeing wasn't the one for me. It spooked me when she told me I had a guardian angel, my dad, who had passed. She asked me his name, and I thought she wanted his first name, so I said William, and she adamantly said he says his name is Bill, and that he didn't mean to leave so soon. That gave me a startle since he died before I was born, some 40 years earlier. There was no Google back then, nor was my last name the same when I was born. I'd love to say it was a bunch of bull, but I just don't know. I do know now my husband looks and sounds like what she told me. Spooky." Number 7. Sick father. This online user spoke about one of their experiences and said, "Before I even sit down in a booth with this lady doing my reading, she said, 'Your dad has passed, right?' He has. I'm not at the age where one would make an assumption that my parent is deceased. He died when I was in my late teens." She goes on to call certain things, like the fact that it was a short illness that could have been diagnosed sooner. That he wanted me to know that he was happy it happened that way, as he didn't want prolonging treatments causing suffering. She mentioned that I had his bag and he was happy for that. She mentioned a pianist being my grandfather, and then goes back to my father talking about his last moments in eerie detail, like who was in the room and who just missed him, and how his mom collected him from the hospital. He mentioned me changing my hair a lot. It was a running joke between us. Talked about trips we would do, stressing to remember good times. She even mentioned some details that I was unsure about but have since confirmed. She talked about my grandmother who passed very recently, said I was a good person, which is pretty much verbatim what she would say to me every time we talked, and that I was wearing her necklace. Now I had my coat buttoned up and the medium could not see this. The final thing that is really freaky to me is that she told me my dad has a child where he is, a small baby. She asked me if my mom had a miscarriage or terminated a pregnancy because my dad says it's his. I tell her no and that it's probably a mistake. Maybe it's my sister's. She reiterates that no, he says says it's his child. I give up chalking it to nonsense, but I had to check, so I called my mom today and she started crying. Early on, her and my dad had to terminate a pregnancy and they never told anyone about it. I still don't know what to think. I don't think you can read that much out of someone, but I'm happy that I went. Number 6, group reading. This online user said a friend of mine went to a well-known local medium last week for a private reading. Just because all of her friends were going, she decided to join in. She is a logical, intelligent, and scientific person with no belief in the afterlife. The reading was a walk-in session, no pre-booking was required, so no research could have been done on this person prior to the reading. When she sat down, the medium immediately told her about a tragic event that resulted in the death of a very close family member a few years ago. She was quite specific with the event, the circumstances surrounding it, the description of the person that died, and the relationship that person had with my friend. My friend says that she wasn't prompted for details, and she then gave my friend messages from the deceased person, again rich with things that were detailed and very specific, with no way the medium could have known / guessed. The whole scenario has left my friend questioning her lack of belief completely. Again, this person is very logical and hasn't believed in an afterlife or anything for many years. I myself am an atheist and have been for some time, but when told the high level of detail that was given to her, I'm even starting to question it all myself. Number 5, great-grandmother. This user said, I was at Lilydale Assembly about 30 years ago, and this woman gave me an amazing reading of my great-grandmother, who I knew well as she hadn't passed till I was 16. So the medium described many of the things she did as a young woman that my mother knew about but I did not, as well as many things I did know. I was graduating from college later that year, so I was curious if she had any good ideas about what I should be doing. My great-grandmother said that I would do a lot of random work, but that ultimately I would be a lot like her in my work, in that people in the community would come to me for help every day, and that I would work in education, and that I would be in front of many classrooms, but that I would not be a teacher. She was a one-room schoolhouse era teacher and figured out ways to help the people at school without using money that wasn't available anyway. After working in a lot of interesting but underpaid and underutilized administrative roles, I got a gig as a GA in a financial aid office to pay for my counseling degree. Also underpaid and underutilized, LOL, but it paid tuition, so I was down for it. So how did I pull all of this together? Well, my mom pulled out the cassette tape of the reading the medium had let me make and played it for me about a year after I got this job, and it was absolutely uncanny. It was like my great-grandmother showed this lady everything I was doing for a living, and she described it perfectly without having any names for anything. Number 4, the friend. This user had an interesting date experience. They said, I matched with a girl who claimed to be a psychic or medium. I recently had a friend who suddenly died and she knew exactly what the girl looked like. Still skeptical, she said, did any of these mean anything to you? She then said key phrases that me and that person shared, that I have never ever shared with anyone else or had the same lingo with anyone else. She picked out specific words and phrases that she would have only known if she had access to my phone or knew the girl, which was also not possible. I was not paying her, she was just someone I matched with and got along with. Number 3, Monica the Medium. This user posted this online 7 years ago. They said my college roommates and I had Monica the Medium come to our apartment and do a reading. I went in having zero expectations and being completely skeptical. By the time the session was done, I was sobbing. She knew so many details about my grandfather's life and passing. She told me he was wearing a long white lab coat, as he was a surgeon back when they would wear those old-fashioned lab coats, that she associates me with worn brown leather, sounds strange. When he died, all that was in his wallet was a photo of me and 1,000 other small things. She knew I had 2 brothers and told me that my grandfather didn't like who I was dating at the time and his name started with a G. Yep, try breaking up with someone because your dead grandfather expressed his disapproval through a medium. She said he is with one of his daughters, didn't know who until I repeated this to my mom, who told me that my grandmother had a stillborn daughter she never talks about. Number 2, communicating with a dog. Now, when I read the story, I was shocked and I knew I had to share it with all of you. This Reddit user said, "This experience was the most profound thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Even more profound than the time I died of a heart attack and was resuscitated 15 to 20 minutes later and then in a coma." Wow. Now recently, and with the help of an animal communicator, I connected with my soul dog Elvis, who transitioned to spirit in May. Elvis was the king and identified himself as such, which confused the heck out of the medium. He then dropped the mic when he said he's lived many lives and he thought we'd been together before, that I'd always taken excellent care of him, and that he'd like to come back to me again. He was his true self, funny, gargacious, snarky, and proud. Very proud. Everyone who met him described him as magnificent, and he loved being a celebrity everywhere we went. At the end of the reading, Elvis invited and inspired me to join with his spirit to move my life's purpose forward in spite of grief. And yes, I'm doing that right now. Hey, this might be hard for some people to believe, but if this helps her, then that's great. And coming at number 1 is father-in-law. This online user said, "I was a skeptic for years until I had one read after my father-in-law passed away. This medium was bringing up things that my grandparents were saying from when I was a kid, stories from my husband's childhood, and knew direct names, places, year, etc. She described a picture wall in our home, a conversation I had with my father-in-law's picture by myself, our trip that was upcoming to Mexico, and even when we would have our rainbow baby. There were so many bang-on things to write down here. She honestly blew my mind." Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 haunting messages from beyond the grave. Now, do you believe in any of these stories? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I'm your host, Emily, and we'll see you next time. Peace.